share my screen and then we'll just get rolling. So I'll try to keep you guys to a half hour, no longer. If you have questions along the way at any time, just let me know. Especially since there's just a few of us, it should be pretty easy to kind of go through this and then, make some decisions and kind of learn, hey, here's what I'm concerned about, or hey, how do I deal with this if it comes up? So I also want to have some fun on appraisals. The reason I want to have a little fun on it is because, I saw a very friendly post on our Facebook page about appraisers are trying to do their best. And that's probably true. Most appraisers are. Some are not. Some appraisers just have it in them that they're doing everyone a favor, and we've run into that, that they're trying to protect the buyer from overpaying, which is kind of unfortunate. So that's why I wanted to do this. And plus, I've been getting a lot of questions from other agents lately on, what's going on with appraisals, what's happening, how do you deal with them if they're low? So real quick for you guys that don't know me, I'm Jonas. We run the Success Home Team. So here's my team, the four of us. So my wife, Holly, and I run it together. She runs the buy side. I only do listings. That's my passion. I'll take a very occasional buyer. I got Nick and Lori. They run the admin side of our business. And the four of us ran the team last year. And we were the number 5 in the region for GCI. So we do a high volume in a very small team. We added 2 additional people this year just to help us continue to grow and hold up with our demand. So first concepts that really just everyone I think knows this. If you don't, the FHA appraisal, it's going to stay with the property for 120 days. The FHA escape clause is built into the purchase agreement, and it really puts the buyer in control. If the price is low, the buyer can still move forward with the low appraisal. The buyer and seller can renegotiate. Otherwise, they have that escape clause. They can get out and cancel. Something certainly to think about as you're accepting offers. If you're worried about appraised value, is it FHA? I know we had multiple offers on one recently, and the FHA offer was better than a conventional, but the fear of that coming in low based on the comparables, it seemed better to go with the conventional a little bit lower. Same with VA, so they actually stick with the property for 6 months, and they have an escape clause. I would encourage you guys to think about, though, if you do get a low appraisal, does it make sense to renegotiate down to that value, especially if it's a VA or FHA, and that's likely where it's going to sell again? We've watched this with our buyers where appraisal comes in low, they would agree to buy the house at the lower appraised value, the seller won't. However, they go and resell it for less months later. And so that's something to really think about prior to not negotiating. So just keep that in mind. Conventional appraisals, this is where we have the most flexibility. So this is something that people don't grasp, and I've argued with brokers on this. The purchase agreement with a conventional loan is not contingent on appraisal. So seriously, it's not contingent on appraisal. If you don't believe me, look at the purchase agreement. We've actually called the attorney who wrote this purchase agreement for the state of Minnesota, and she will tell you flat out that it is not contingent on appraised value on a conventional loan. So some options, a new appraisal can be ordered. And guess what? If it came in low, it really doesn't matter. The buyer is still obligated to buy that house. And so there is a couple caveats to that, which we'll get into a little bit. Let's say they're putting a very low money down, and now they don't have enough money to pay the difference. But let's say they're putting 20% down on a loan, and the appraiser comes in 10% under value. Well, guess what they can do? They can adjust their loan to value. They can have a loan to value of 90% versus 80%, and they can, with the same amount of cash, still buy the house. And contractually, they're obligated to do so. That's a concept that most agents don't get, don't understand, don't know how to structure. So it's really important to understand that at a high level. And I'll get into that a little bit more, but does that make sense to you guys that are on?
Yeah, it does. Have you ever had issues on the sell side? If we said, okay, we're going to go 20% and now it's 10. I mean, they kind of know why we're doing it because to gap the appraisal, but if you had any issues that way, they go, well, we thought you're doing 20.
No, not at all. In fact, because the seller knows what's going on, they know the appraisal came in low and they want to sell at their full price. And so what you can do then is restructure. I mean, we just restructured one that was 10% down to cover the gap. They ended up doing, this is on my listing, they end up doing a little higher loan to value of 93% versus 90%. So the cash out of the pocket was the same, the cash to my seller was the same, and the lender could approve it at that. And so it's just a way to, if you have a good buyer's agent on the other side, you can restructure it and make it a win-win for everybody. In all reality, the buyer still wants the house. They'd rather not miss out in most instances. And so no, we
I
have none of
haven't
that.
had, I haven't had to adjust it yet, but I'm guessing we'd have to do an amendment, right, to the PA?
Correct. Yeah, you just amend it. You know, and basically you're just amending it that they're putting 10% down, and that's usually more just for the lenders problem. I mean, they don't really, in all reality, if they still qualify. The reason sometimes you'll get pushback is now they don't want to pay PMI, right? They're going to have to go from a non-PMI mortgage to PMI mortgage. But even a good lender, we've run into this with one of our lenders helping on our buy side, where they just prepaid mortgage insurance and it cost them like $1,200. And so really for virtually the same amount of money, their payments stayed the same, everything stayed the same, and they were able to get the house for an extra $1,200. So it takes a good team altogether to understand what's going on with that. But that's a confusion that right off the bat, I can tell you most agents don't get. Low appraisal comes on a conventional loan. Well, guess what? That doesn't really matter. There's options to restructure. The only time it really matters is if it's like a 3% down and the appraisal came in low, you probably, okay, now legitimately they could probably get on financing because they won't qualify. So just something to think about there. I wanted to talk about strategies. So, and this is super important. I've helped a couple agents in the office with this. Right up front, if we're getting multiple offers, discuss with your sellers about the possibility of a low appraisal. That's possible in this market. And then pay attention. Like I helped an agent recently. They said, hey, our best offer is like 30 grand more than the other, but they're only 5% down. And I'm like, well, what's the other offer? They're like, well, it's 5% down too. I'm like, okay, well, obviously go with the higher offer and just go ahead and give them the script. Tell your seller right up front, hey, we accepted such a great offer based on the comparables we looked at and the sales we looked at with you. We don't know that it's going to appraise, but great news. If it doesn't appraise and we have to renegotiate to that price, you're still getting the absolute most for your property. And it's still likely going to be more than our backup offer. Seller was super happy with that. They're like, oh yeah, that's a really good point. If it comes in a little low, I'm still getting more than I thought, or I'm getting the most value that someone else can justify. So that's a really good strategy just up front just to warn your sellers. I can tell you personally with the seller recently, we accepted an offer. We had 3 of them on. The top offer was too good. We're like, there's no chance it appraises. And we went through the comps together. And my seller agreed. They're like, well, we get it's not going to appraise. So I guess we'll just see what it appraises for. And maybe then we can negotiate on that. Sure enough, that appraisal came in 10 grand low, which is actually more than we expected it to come in, better than we expected. And the buyer and the seller, then we negotiated and we're able to get them to meet in the middle. So the buyer came up 5 grand, the seller came down 5, and the seller was happy because they're like, look, I already knew it wasn't going to appraise. We knew it was worth, we thought it was worth 200. We sold it for, 225, and then we get appraisal for 215. So we're like, hey, it's a win. We end up settling at 220. Not a bad deal for everybody. So that's the easiest, cleanest way, right? If we can kind of just negotiate in that regard. But it's because I had pre-prepped the seller that really helped. All right. Number 2, a lot of people are doing this. I do it on some depending on the property. We're winning offers on our buyers pre-negotiating. So negotiate up front with the buyer depending on financing. So I know Jen mentioned this today. In the event of a low appraisal, buyers agree to pay $10,000 over appraised value, not to exceed final sales price. So always write in the not to exceed sales price, because otherwise you might have, hey, I want to see your appraisal. Oh, it came in. Well, you owe me 10 grand more now. All right. So we don't want that to happen. That can be a good deal if you think your appraisal is going to come in low and you can already just pre-agree that, hey, based on the comparables, we know it's going to likely come in low. But if you're willing to pay over appraised value, we're going to go ahead and take that and still accept it. And so that's kind of a nice way to do it. It depends on the deal. Depending on the buyer's agent I'm working on and how their financing structured, whether that's a good deal or not. If it's a higher money down conventional, I might not want to pre-negotiate that. I might want my appraisal to come in, see where it lands, and then negotiate from that point. And so it might be, hey, they're 20% down or 30% down. We had one just recently we're going through, it's going to close here in a few weeks. They made such an offer so above ask price, we're like, there's no chance it's going to appraise. But they're putting 50% down. And so guess what? When the appraisal came in low, they just restructured. So they are putting, instead of it being a 50% loan to value, they went to like a 75% loan to value. it didn't matter, right? They covered the whole gap, and that's kind of what we had agreed to. And so you've just got to be creative in that. Number three, this, I don't know if you guys are doing this on your listings. I'm doing it on all of my listings right now, is I'm helping the appraiser. The appraisers are struggling to find data. And the reason for it is the appraisers have to use outdated data, right? So the appraiser's data happened 30, 60, 90 days ago, sometimes 6 months. I had appraiser use in fact, on the appraisal I'll bring up in a minute, they used a comp from last July. Well, I don't know about you, but the market has dramatically improved since last July. And they didn't make any adjustment for time. And so up front, we get a notification the appraiser's going through. Send them your pricing strategy. Tell them, hey, we priced this one intentionally to get multiple offers. We received 15 offers. I always tell them my top offers are all within a few $1,000s of each other. Or did you not, like I've had it where we don't accept the highest offer. Hey, I had an offer that was 10 grand more. Maybe there was terms we didn't agree to and this other one was better. Let the appraiser know that so that they can in their head already think, okay, yeah, it's in an increasing market. So that's super important to do up front. And then if you have good comparables, send the appraiser good comparables to help support your value. You can talk to the appraiser, you can call them, you can email them, you can leave comps at the property. You can do that up front. I can tell you oftentimes we've had appraisers use 5 or anywhere between 4 and 5 of the comparables we left them. That's a big deal because that proves that we're going to get value. Something to understand though, a lot of agents do this. They'll send non-comparables to justify their value. That won't work. If you're selling a Rambler and you go send them a 2-story or you send them a split level, they're not going to want to use that. They can make adjustments for that style. And I've talked to a lot of appraisers on this, most appraisers won't want to do that. They don't want to make adjustment for style. They want to keep the house the same style. So think about that. When I've come to appraisal fights, you want to be able to justify that. And so I can give you a little background on that. If you can provide the value and show your market, you can send it back to the, if you do get a low appraiser, you can send it back to the lender and get their underwriters to basically ask for a review, which I'll talk about in just a second. But so far, for the few of you guys on, the 4 of you on the call, does that all make sense? Do you have any questions on that yet?
Makes good sense.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. Awesome. All right. So our appraisal came in low. Now what? And I can tell you, I've fought with a lot of appraisals over my 15 years in real estate. In fact, fun fact, I have been called as an expert witness in 4 different cases, generally divorce, fighting over value of property. In every instance, they had brought in an appraiser and they did an appraisal. In those 4 instances, I beat the courts went with my value over the appraised value. So when you can provide good quality data, the appraisal can get restructured. Other people, including the courts, can look at it and go, oh, you actually know what you're talking about here. And so they'll use our value versus the outdated value that they may have been giving because the comps are different. So first thing, review the appraisal. And I'm going to pull this up. All right. I'll go back up to my screen to see if I'm sharing. Oh, good. All right. So depending on how you're looking at this, you might so this property here, it just came in low value. So right away I start scrolling through to see if I can find some errors. And so I'll show you on the first thing I'm looking for is when it talks about data on the market. I think it's page 12 actually. I'll just skip to it. Oh, no, wrong page. Give me 2 seconds. I should have had this one pre-prep for you, but I had it open earlier and then I had to close out of it. So in the appraisal, they talk about market data and what the market's doing. That's the first thing you want to look at. Are they actually giving you the right value for and right description of the market? And so I always just scroll through and see what their notes are on it. Let me just kind of find it real quick. I thought it was page 12.
I think it was page 4. You had something on page.
Subject, contract, neighborhood. Yeah, right here. Well, there's actually a deeper spot too. So I'll find it. Oh, there it is. It is page 4. I think I might just scroll too far. Now there's actually a market condition. Hang on, I'll find it. I had too many of these open. History, there's the actual appraisal. Well, I'll jump to comps and then I'll go back to a market condition. So I'm not seeing it right now. But in every appraisal, oh, here it is, right here. So it's page 14. I was thinking 12. So in every appraisal, they have to lay out what market conditions are. So I quickly look and saw this one, and literally everything they show, stable, 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 stable. That's not true for Coon Rapids. In fact, we can refute that simply based on sales from what they use as comparables versus now. We can also refute that based on InfoSparks data. So it's the first thing I wrote up for the lender was, look, they're incorrectly identifying the market as stable. It's actually an increasing market. Here's why. And so you want to give a lot of detail if you're trying to dispute an appraisal, which is generally your first step because most buyers don't want to, especially in this case, they're very low money down conventional. So they don't really want to pay for a new appraisal. They'd rather try to dispute this appraisal. So first thing we do is look at that and say, well, hey, they're wrong. And then here's my InfoSparks data. Here's the data in the actual neighborhood showing that we're in an increasing market, not a decreasing market or in a stable market. In fact, what we found was month over month, home prices in this neighborhood were increasing at 5% per month based on actual sales data. If they would have made a proper adjustment for that time based on the comparables they used, all of these would have shown proper value. And so the next thing you want to do is look at what do they use for comps. Now this particular appraiser was literally, this is the one actually I told you, they were using sales. This sale number 2, 76 days on market, are sold in 2 days on market, by the way. And this one closed back in July, so 7/20. So last year in July, a home that was on the market for 76 days is very different to today where they're on the market for 3 days. So I broke these down and explained what was wrong with them. And we were able to resubmit that to the lender, who then what happens, so once you send it to the lender, they send it to their underwriters for review. Underwriters go, yep, you've got a good case here. They send it back to the appraiser for a review with updated comps. And so we went through and broke that down. We've already got initial that they're going to raise the price on the appraisal by 7,000. We're still pushing for more, but that's how quickly, if you actually know what you're doing, you can go and get your appraisal raised. Now, if it doesn't come up, we can, because it's conventional, they can get a new appraisal. I can dig into that more, but that's the first. If it's a low appraisal and it's conventional, or FHA or VA, super important to dig into that because they stick with the property. So it's more important to get that one raised. And we want to give the lender enough data to basically go to their underwriter. The underwriter needs to justify and go, hey, this agent knows what they're talking about. Oh yeah, these comps are wrong. Or hey, one of their comparables shows our value above where our sold price was, but they gave it the least amount of weight. They gave a sale from, last July more weight than the sale from December of 2020. That doesn't make sense. So that's kind of your first step. Go in and dispute. Next, I shouldn't say that, it might be your first step. If they have money and can cover the difference, start just negotiating. It's cleaner if you can negotiate for sure. If they're 10% down, in this instance, had they had 10% down, they could restructure to a 95 and we'd have enough money to cover appraisal. This one, they just didn't have enough money. And so step one then, because they didn't have really much money to offset the difference, we're gonna dispute the appraisal. If they don't come back and give us the appraisal value you're gonna want, our seller is gonna push to get them to just order a whole new appraisal. The only downside now is we'll have to delay our closing by a couple weeks. But if we can get a new appraisal using some updated comps from this year, we'll probably get value. For them, they're like, gosh, if I can, get that $15,000, I'd rather hang on to it for another month than to sell it for 15 grand less. So you got to think about that. Again, if they're 20% down, we would just restructure it to make them pay the difference and basically fight the other agent on what the actual contract says and what the rules are. Some other options is, what if there's just no comps to justify? I run on that. There's stuff where I'm going, man, I know for a fact this house won't appraise. I have one that got an appraisal done today. I sold it for $240. Every comparable in that neighborhood that's similar, same exact unit, it's a townhome, so they're pretty easy to comp out, sold for $215. We know for a fact it's not going to appraise at $240. So in that instance, what we did is we pre-negotiated up front. The seller knew. We looked at all the comparables and they said, yeah, you're right. It's not going to, I said, I'll sell it for more, but it's not going to appraise. So they're going to pay 15 grand over whatever the appraisal comes back at. And so that's kind of an idea there as well. The other things to start thinking about too is this in your seller's best interest to take the low number, or is the market even better where we say, hey, you know what, we're going to cancel. We're not going to adjust. You can either cancel or you can move forward. It puts the seller in control. Now there's a risk in that. I've seen it go both ways. I've seen sellers say, you know what, we're not going to agree to these updated terms, and then resell for less. And I just had one recently where we couldn't come to terms, and legitimately they just didn't have enough money to cover the difference. Unfortunately, we resold it for, I think, $5,000 more, and then it appraised above value. So it's really kind of a crapshoot on that. So what's in the best interest for your buyer? But I covered a lot in 24 minutes. What kind of questions do you have? I'd love to answer anything you want to know, anything that are of concerns or anything that I can help you guys with.
Are you sending comps proactively on
Yes.
this?
Yeah, always send comps. Strategy number 2, or 3, help the appraiser. Look at your comps. This is my favorite, and that's where I said you have to understand the actual comps. I've had so many people where I'm trying to work with the other agent to get our appraisal increase, and I'm like, well, what comps do you have? And they send me stuff, and I go, guys, that's not a comp. Like, if you don't understand how the appraiser comps out, get to know appraiser. That was one of my fortunate things, is I networked with 2 different appraisers for years, and I used to send them low appraisers and appraisals, and they would help me review them and then give me strategies and say, here's what this appraiser did wrong, here's what they could do. So yeah, proactively send them the comps. Tell them up front if it sold multiple offers. Hey, I got 15 offers on this one. Our strategy was to price it low to get multiple offers. We did that intentional, because otherwise the appraiser thinks, well, look, you didn't even think it was worth this. You priced it low. Well, no, we did that intentionally. It sets a different mindset in the appraiser. So you're being proactive and you're helping your seller and you're actually helping the buyer, right? It's just much easier if it hits value than if it doesn't, plain and simple. And so always be proactive, and then send the appraiser good comparables. If you don't have good comparables, tell them it's sold for multiples and you priced it that way intentionally, and then just don't send them comparables. I've had that, and sometimes they help you. I've even had appraisers call me this year, or I should say last year now, and say, hey, I'm struggling with value. What did you use? And I was like, okay, oh, you got me. I don't really have a comparable either. And so then we'll work together to try to cherry pick some. It just depends on the appraiser you get. So, but yeah, be proactive for sure. From there, be even proactive if it does come in low. You just got to be a strong agent and understand your purchase agreement, because most of the time people are getting out, or they're letting deals fall apart because they don't understand that the buyer could step up and bring more money, or adjust their payment. There's so many options there that people don't think about, but I would say your best option is always to be proactive with the appraiser. So, Jen, Jennifer, Mickey, you guys got any questions? Any thoughts, concerns?
Nope.
As you hear me, Jen, you're kind of
Yeah,
broken up. I just said, do you have any questions, concerns, thoughts?
Yeah, I always thought we weren't supposed to interfere with the appraisers, I guess. So I have an appraiser, like they're probably doing it right now, on a house I sold this weekend. I had 23 offers, way over. So I put like a sheet with the market analysis out on the counter there. And I put a sheet for all the special features so they can see what all's been done to the house and that sort of thing.
That's huge. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the common misconception there, as agents, we can talk to the appraiser. Loan officers cannot. Now, some appraisers think that we can't talk to them, or they'll be very standoffish, but there is actually no rule or guideline anywhere that says a real estate agent can't talk to the appraiser. Now, be kind to them. I mean, and give them info like that. Let them know it's sold for 23 offers. Leave them the upgrades that have been done to the house. All that things help, because they can make adjustments for condition. They can make adjustments for market. So if you can show, hey, I had 23 offers, that's a value to the property versus the one down the street that didn't sell with multiple offers, that was on the market for 40 days. So they can make adjustments for that. So yeah, good job on that. Give them all the info.
Yeah, I appreciate your doing this today. This is helpful.
Awesome. Any other questions? Otherwise, I was trying to keep it to a half hour. Like I said, I try to cover a lot of content in a in a short while with everyone, but this just, you know, is a real topic that if you haven't had a low appraisal yet, there's a good chance that you will this year, based on the increase of values. They're just happening faster than appraisers can keep up. You know, they're looking at data that's 30, 60, 90 days old, and there's neighborhoods that in 30 days, they're appreciating 5 to 10%. It's insane. Awesome. Well, that's what I had. If you guys have any other questions, or if you run into an issue, low appraisal, and you want to know what it looks like to email someone like the lender, what kind of data you want to provide, how to structure it. I've unfortunately been dealing with this for years because we've had a gift of selling properties a little bit higher price, which was really challenging in the down market. We sold houses with multiple offers and no one even believed us. And we're like, well, they sold multiples. This is where it sold for. And the appraiser's like, you know, really struggled with that. So if you need any help in the future, feel free to email me, reach out. I'm always happy to give you guys input.
Great, thank you. It's very helpful.
Awesome, guys. All right, have a great day, everyone.